You're listening to the all-new Don and Mike Show reunion podcast from ExhibitCityNews.com. For 5.5 years, the Don and Mike Show was a podcast staple for the trade show, live event, and experiential marketing industries in today's world. Your hosts, as always, are Don Sabela, owner and publisher of Exhibit City News in Las Vegas, and Mike Morrison, Vice President of Sales at WS Display. The reunion kicks off right after this short break.
Need a presenter? Your Event Audio has you covered. Closed-circuit audio equipment with turnkey operation at your trade show booth, live event, or private event. YourEventAudio.com is the place to go. DJ services, MC talent, and a whole lot more. Check out YourEventAudio.com today.
What's up, everybody? It's been a while. Not necessarily for me, but it has been for this duo. Haven't been back. As you can tell, it's pretty loud in here, and it's not even time to start yet, and the noise factor is pretty wild out there. But it's Itasca Country Club just outside of Chicago, and it is time for the 21st annual Chicago Randy here at the Itasca Country Club, and as we've been promoting the reunion of the Don and Mike Show. So Don flew in early this morning from Las Vegas to make this historic trip and to be a part of this annual version of the Chicago Randy. Have you had enough coffee yet? I guess that's the first question.
You know, Mike, I'm glad to be here. I'm coffeeed out, but I'm almost ready for another one. You know, it's already been close to an hour without coffee, but you got to hand it to these Midwesterners at the Chicago Randy. They show up early and they are on top of it. I mean, look at this. A couple hours early, getting everything ready. Love seeing that.
Well, the big thing is we've got a rain problem here. It rained early this morning throughout most of the morning. It's about an hour or so, hour and a half before we take the photo of the group. And then, of course, a couple hours from now, we'll have the shotgun start here at Itasca Country Club. So it's going to be, we were talking earlier, it will be a golf cart only day, golf path only day. So there'll be no driving on the course. And when you got this many golfers that load up the golf course, it's going to take a while to get this tournament over with. So that's going to be interesting to see. But it's an all-day affair anyway, just like the Big Randy coming up in September down in Atlanta, Chateau Elan. They'll come up in September. So we're really excited to be a part of it. I'm sure you are too, with the Don and Mike Show podcast reunion.
Yeah, for certain, Mike. We'll probably start getting a landslide of people coming through here, and bags of golf clubs coming all over the place, and the energy will continue to strengthen, and then off they go, rain or shine.
So a lot of people have been hitting me up on emails, chats, social medias, going, wow, reunion, that's interesting. And, Don and I, we talked about it, and it makes sense at this point to come back and resurface and bring back Don and Mike. It was 5.5 years, 250,000 listens. Every week. Now, this new show won't be every week. Just the fact that I just got elevated to VP of my company makes it kind of a tough gig with 3 new regional sales managers, having to train them, go out all over the country and travel. And then, of course, we have another podcast, as many people know, with You're Working Trade Shows Win, with the Facebook group there with Todd Nall. So, but I did want to resurface it one more time and bring it back, and we're talking about how we go back to market with Don and Mike. It was a different time, from 2017 to 22, especially in the pandemic time, when we got the biggest bulk of our listeners because there was really nothing else to do, right? I mean, everybody was hinging on every episode to say, well, what's coming up next for our industry?
Twice a week we did, because things were changing so rapidly or non-rapidly.
That's the truth. And I talked to a lot of people about that time frame because I was one of the fighters. I was a rebel. I was sitting there saying, this will last 2 months and will we be back to shows, because we never experienced anything like that. Whether it was a financial fallout, 9/11, whatever, all the other issues that have happened in our past, we really just kept forging forward, and so did your publication. So it was just really a weird time. to look back on. And I know you're on social media as I am. A lot of time hops come up, from 4 years ago, and you look and you go, wow, I am really glad that's behind my rearview mirror.
Yes. I mean, the only thing bigger than a pandemic could be a war right in our face. Nothing can interrupt our industry or the world industries other than something that drastic. So who knows?
Who knows? Isn't that the truth? And especially right now in this geopolitical environment that we're in, there's no telling. 2024 has this election process going on right now. We're less than 100 days or so from the election there, and we'll see what happens. But back to Itasca Country Club. It is looks like the rain is actually stopped at this point. We're a couple of hours away from the shotgun start. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have some interviews. We're trying to get I call them the boss ladies. We talk about Nancy Virene, Jackie Hake, who run this show, who run this game. We always talk to them every year, so we'll take a quick break and come back with that right after this.
From light boxes, towers, counters, and back walls to turnkey custom exhibits, WS Display is your partner in providing quality displays at extremely aggressive pricing to fit any reseller's budget. Make more profit by teaming up with WS. With a team of experts to assist with estimates, renderings, and CAD, to fulfillment, setup, and test fitting, quality photo proofs, and complete project handling from our East Coast, West Coast, and Pacific fulfillment facilities. We can be your partner today. Hit me up at mike@wsdisplay.com for more information.
Welcome back. It's a Don and Mike Show reunion. It's our first show out of the chute, and it's back here to a very relatable town. It's one that Don is from originally. It's one that we frequent often here in the trade show industry, and from the Midwest chapter of EDPA, which helps us out in hosting the Chicago Randy 21st year. Did I get that right?
That's correct. 21 years.
Every now and then math challenges me, so I have to, because the 30th is in Atlanta, 21st is here. I was here for last year's 20th reunion, so now when it comes to numbers, I'm completely messed up. But the important thing is that we're here to benefit the industry, and as a feeder event to the Big Randy. It's coming up in September. This event is Don, some small event. I mean, this has always been a pretty good sized event over the years.
Oh, it instrumental as building the Big Randy, the feeder one here. Going way back to Sue Renner, way back 21 years ago, getting it up and running. Not by herself, naturally, a whole team.
Sure, absolutely. And I've been coming here since the podcast started back in 2017. Actually, it was at Seven Bridges, but this. And I was talking to Nancy earlier, and of course Jackie Hake's joining us now. And tell us a little bit. I think I know the answer, but a lot of people kept questioning why Itasca Country Club as opposed to Seven Bridges, and maybe it's just in need of a change.
Yeah, we had talked about making a change back in 2020 just to keep it fresh and keep it exciting, keep it new. Obviously in 2020 there were so many other changes going on that we did hold the Chicago Randy, but we just stayed at Seven Bridges. So it took a few years for us to get back on our feet after that, and anytime that there's a change in venue, it's usually more money and just kind of a logistics challenge. So we were finally ready for that this year, and Itasca Country Club is a beautiful course. It's very hilly from what I hear, so I think it's going to be a great change for us going forward.
Now, if you want to go back to a very odd and interesting time in history, was the 2020 Chicago Randy. I often joke about this one. I'll make it brief, a very Reader's Digest. I flew into Midway, and if you remember, there were some restrictions. The restrictions were if you traveled into Chicago, you had to quarantine for 2 weeks, or something to that effect. It was some ungodly amount. So I jumped in my rental car, drove all the way outside of Chicago to make sure I did not even come close. After the tournament, of course, the tournament was down at Seven Bridges, so it was just right up 50 or right down 55, jump over there, do that, and then I circled Chicago to make sure I drove. It came up on my time hop, Don, the other day. I drove to Milwaukee so that I could fly back home without being stuck, so they wouldn't trace the fact that I flew into Chicago. Now, how paranoia is that?
Hey, you know what? It's justified. That was unprecedented, and we had some strange things thrown at us, and we dealt with it the best we could. And it's just strange seeing it in the rearview mirror. That did it really happen?
Well, the funny thing was, if I remember correctly, Jackie, I think I was the only out-of-towner who came and participated that year, because everybody was local, and I remember the questions, what are you doing here? And that was kind of the embarrassing moment of that. But the show had to go on. I remember we had 10 foursomes maybe at that event. Do you remember?
That's exactly, I was going to say about 38, 40 golfers, but we kept it going so that, people had a place to go and to kind of commiserate during that tough time.
And then we came back and we started again, 21, 22, and so forth. So it's a continual event. This year will be a lot different. The rain looks like it's stopped now, but that doesn't change the fact that it's soaking wet outside, and it will be on cart path only, but especially as a golfer, that kind of sucks. But the show has to go on. And tell us a little bit about how many golfers are in the mix this year, and anything that is new other than Itasca Country Club being the new thing.
Sure. This year we're expecting 115 golfers, which is not a record high for us, but it is a record high during an IMTS year. We have IMTS coming to McCormick Place this September, and so everyone's busy, with their proposals and building. And so normally golfer attendance is down every other year, but that's not really the case this year, so that's fantastic. And then we do have a record number of sponsors, people coming out wanting to do more this year and to really participate and get their brand out there and support the cause, of course. We also have record number of volunteers. People were calling us even this weekend saying, hey, can I volunteer? I'd love to help out. So the event is growing year after year. We're really proud of that.
That is awesome. It's good to hear that you don't take steps backwards, you move forwards. Weather's not going to stop this event, Don. It's going to keep going. This is your first time back in a couple of years, I believe.
I did not come last year, I think. It all blends together. I think I've missed 2 out of the 21.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
3 counting the 1 year with the COVID.
Yeah, that's and it's. I would imagine, Jackie, there's a lot of that's out there that maybe some new faces are coming back, even despite the ITMS situation.
Yeah, that's correct. Every year we look at the registration, for pretty much 3 months or 4 months since registration opens. And this year, I must say, there are a lot of new names that I hadn't seen in the past. So I'm excited to meet some new people, find out where they're from. We have a lot of people traveling from out of town, which is fantastic. Our message, for the charity is definitely getting out there, and it's growing year after year.
It's always good to hear and always be good to be a part of the Chicago Randy. It's the 21st anniversary here at the Itasca Country Club. Take a quick break. Don and I'll come back and wrap this one up right after this.
My name is Donald Savela, and I'm publisher, founder of Exhibit City News. Project 30 is the culmination of 3 decades of trade show and event history across North America and even internationally to a degree. We're charged with the history of the industry. We take it very seriously. Our entire staff does. This is something we put out for our 20th anniversary. Then we put this book out for the 25th anniversary, and we're already talking, like 225 pages. So we're expecting Project 30 to be roughly around 300 pages of stuff that's important to the industry.
Well, what it means for the industry is the important thing, and we're the keeper of the history of the industry. It's like one big small town, and these are all the population from coast to coast and beyond, and no one else has recorded the history of the growth of the venues, from no venue to gigantic venues, from a labor force specialized in handling an exhibit program.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Don and Mike Show reunion podcast for the month of August. Of course, you've seen the front end of the show where just earlier this week, both Don and I were in Chicago for the Chicago Randy event. Plus, he and I stayed and did some sales calls and doing the due diligence and our side, his for publications, mine, of course, for WS Display. Of course, here on the weekend, we're back in our home offices. He is in Vegas and I am back in Atlanta. And Don, I thought it was a very good event. We ended up being able to drive on the course, which I kind of shot myself in the foot early by saying it was going to be cart path only. But apparently that course has a way of drying out, and drying out it did because humidity came in, and that became a whole nother story. But it was fun, and I'm glad I participated in it. What was your experience?
Yeah, all in the name of charity, Mike. It was a great day. You know, we danced between the raindrops. It looked like it was certainly going to rain, and it didn't rain till right after the end of the tournament, and even then, it wasn't that bad.
Wasn't that bad at all. It was just heavy rains on the morning side. That's what kind of threw everybody off. But I was really surprised, being a private country club course, that they allowed us to get out there and drive, because I'm sure the members came back the next day and were probably pretty upset with the fact that we were out there tearing up their course. But a lot of golfers, 115, I believe, or so, went out and played on that Monday. Had a great finalized dinner event and a lot of networking and people in that Chicagoland area. Always great to be a part of that. Of course, as we know, we'll talk about towards the end of this portion of the show, next month in September. It'll be the large Randy Smith, the original Randy Smith, the 30th anniversary of the Randy Smith Memorial Golf Classic here at Chateau Elan. Well, like I said, talk a little bit more about that on the end of the show before we break off. Couple of things to talk about from the outside, but yet into our industry of trade shows, live events, and experientials. You and I are off mic talking a minute ago. It's interesting that the Labor Department just released numbers for July. And it turns out that there were far fewer jobs added to the marketplace than what they had forecast for. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I know you keep up with the same type of news, the thoughts of not changing the interest rate. The Fed did not cut those interest rates because they thought that there would be more jobs added. And then all of a sudden they find out that they took a big dip and freezing hires took place. And a lot of people are really kind of screaming and kicking now because that did not happen. And but I bring it up because in visiting clients like I did last week, one of the things I did notice were companies that I visited that having trouble hiring. They actually are working leaner. I'll just put that on a bumper sticker, right? Because that's kind of made that up, but that's the thing. They're making it happen one way or the other, whether they can fill the positions or they get it done. What was your experience of that, or your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Mike, I think you're right. People are doing more with less, not knowing where the economy is leading us right now. A soft landing is hard to achieve. Maybe it doesn't have to be a hard landing, but a bumpy landing could be somewhere in between. So, we've all had all three of those landings coming in from airports. So it's going to be somewhere along those lines. So
good analogy. I know flying back, I flew United home. Of course, that's a big Chicago-based airline. And sure enough, it was the Spalding basketball bounce back here at Hartsfield to change my rear end. It was not good trying to get to the car, but nonetheless, Exhibit City News reported at the end of last week a very disturbing story. I was really kind of shocked to read about EEI Global up in the Michigan area filing for bankruptcy. And off mic again, you and I were talking about, you never want to read that, you never want to hear it. I've known EEI for years, and one of the things that when you start outside looking in, you start wondering, what happened. Your mind starts thinking, well, probably had something to do with the automobile industry, which does tie to the economy that we were just talking about. Interest rates are crazy right now. Inflation is off the chain. Buying a car is tough. It's funny that I mentioned this whole story is not funny, but the fact that right now my wife and I, because of my son having 4 grandkids, we've got to go to a third row vehicle. Okay, so we're in the market trying to find another vehicle. So I'm paying off the SUV that we've got, and that frees up the credit line to go out and buy something. And then you look at the new car prices, and you go, what the hell? I mean, and then of course, then you start looking at, okay, I'll go used. Well, heck, used is as much as new is. And the interest rates on top of that are just as crazy. I'm almost ready to just pay cash and walk away, which you don't do with a new car. Some people with stupid money do that. But so that's part of one of the things I think about with this. And another would be credit lines. Maybe they had a couple of big accounts that didn't pay their bills, and which then forces you to, force your hand on not being able to pay your suppliers. Either way, it's not a good sign when you read an article like that and wonder who else, is suffering from those same issues.
Yeah, it's a changing dynamic out there, especially for auto shows. It's been changing for a number of years. I mean, with the gas combustion engine, it's the auto show. But if the car is electric, it could be the electronic show. It could be a number of shows for the debut. So that those big splashy, couple big shows a year that really rake it in, the LA Auto Show, the granddaddy of them all, the Detroit Auto Show and the Chicago Auto Show were pretty much the big 3, I think. But I think they're reorganizing. So it is what it is. These are changing times. So a lot of proud craftspeople, a lot of wonderful, talented workers over there. So, yeah, I think they're getting it figured out.
Yeah, we've seen it earlier this year, companies that have filed that same type of bankruptcy restructuring because of things that are outside of their control. You do business for so long a certain way, you give terms, you trust companies and people, and then things happen, and sooner or later something bad does happen rather, and it's sad to see. Another one that hit me across the eyes when I read about and heard about Chevron leaving California. Now, we know I work for a California company, so I'm very well aware. As a matter of fact, there's a story that's coming in your publication on Monday. This is Sunday, we're recording tomorrow, about an OSHA award, a state award that we received for safety at WS. So we know what governmental is all about, right? I mean, it's California, but California regulations can drive you batty in a lot of instances, and that's, I'm assuming, what happened here with Chevron. They've now up and moved their 7,000, or actually they already had 7,000 employees in Houston already with their company, and now they're moving their headquarters there to the Texas area instead of California. Shocking or not shocking? What's your opinion on that story?
I read that article this morning, Mike, and where they're leaving from is it San Ramon or whatever it is in California? There's 2 or 3 other Fortune 500 companies based right there as well. They're not hurting as bad as it seems. And in the same article, it said that California has reclaimed the title as the state with the most Fortune 500 companies based there. So, and like you said, they've been transferring a lot of their staff to Houston over the last several years. So it's not that dramatic of a move, but taking at face value, go where you're not getting dirt kicked in your face. Oil's a bad word in California, and it talked about the domestic production has fallen by like 60 or 70% over the last 10 or 20 years. So, all those little wells and stuff they had across the landscape just gone.
Yeah, it's not positive and plus sensationalism of the media does tend to accelerate discussion. I mean, we can't argue the fact we're in the middle of an election year. So everybody's reaching and grabbing onto those subjects that cause impulse and reactions. And when you hear that big corporation leaving and going to Texas or going east away from California, that does stir up the controversial aspect of the article in the news. But I thought that was interesting. It does leave a hole for a lot of our suppliers. I saw one supplier, a portable and outdoor tent company who is based in California, was very upset about that move, and it puts a big dent in their business. And that's what happens is you get a hole with the business that you developed. And finally, before we begin to wrap things up, I saw this article and I thought this was interesting. You know, as a traveler, a business traveler, you and I both, we travel a lot. We travel a lot by plane, obviously, and we drive a lot. And a lot of travelers are getting a little irked by it. But what I did not know is that a lot of travelers have moved to rail here, even in the United States. Amtrak is up 18% over last year with travel. And they have, as you know, if you ever go to Amtrak's website, it's a very limited set of distances and places where they go. It's not like it used to be when I was growing up. My dad was 33 years with the railroad. Part of that was Amtrak, and he'd bend your ear telling you all about it. But the thing is, there's limited routes now with Amtrak. And to see that kind of increase, almost 20%, is pretty phenomenal. But we're also seeing, as you've kept up with, I'm sure there in Vegas, you know, the Vegas LA mindset of building speed rail, going from there back and forth. Also, Miami and Orlando come to mind because they already have Brightline. The Northeast is already using a lot of rail up there. Off mic, we were talking about Chicago specifically. I'm sure the other, of course, the commuter rails and stuff in New York, Boston, and other places are pretty commonplace. But it begs to question not only long distance travel, but even in areas where rail is not that progressive, maybe like in Atlanta or someplace like that. Do you think maybe here in the short term, the concept of building more rail for commercial use for passenger rail, well, you think that will develop here in the next bit, even more than what it's doing right now?
Yeah, Mike, I think you're absolutely right that the momentum has been building over several or more years, not just with the high-speed rail, but just regular rail in general. I've read where right now they've got a 30% off sale on Amtrak on just about all their routes, but it's the current administration that dumped all that money into Amtrak right when they took hold of office, and these are some of the fruits from that, which can only be good. Take more people off the road. I love sitting on a train looking out the window. So I think it's going to continue to expand. Some of the timelines I'm not sure about, though. I heard the new route out of Chicago that goes to Milwaukee and then that stops in the Wisconsin Dells and then goes up to the Twin Cities or wherever, Minneapolis.
Right.
It leaves at 2 a.m. Someone told me in Chicago. That's not attractive. But anyway.
Well, think about that, because you said it there was our length of travel is today. I need to get there today. I can't take the slow train and get there in 3 days. I can't leave at 2 a.m. and be worth a flip when I arrive at my client's location or to the show. So I think you're right. I mean, speed train, bullet train seems to be the only answer if that can be developed. And can it be done regionally? I certainly don't think it can be done across the United States, but I think it could be done regionally if it's done right. And it could be an alternative because Europe does that so well, right? They do it very well.
Yeah. Even some of their infrastructure starting to get old and stale and having problems. So it takes constant investment, and not a small amount either. In that same article on Amtrak, I think it said that they just took over the entire train station. I don't know if it was New York or DC, but that's been a long time in the makings because it was a complex deal, but it's like $8 billion or more. Now they're going to redevelop the whole thing. So, make it somewhere that people want to come and hang out for a little bit.
Yeah, make it attractive, make it fast, good, fast, and cheap. You can't have all three. You can have two, right? So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I don't know where that analogy came from, but it's a thought that just crossed my mind about that and everything else. We're rolling into the end towards the end of summer. As we all know from the trade show side, now is the second half of the yearly busy season. All the fall shows are getting ready to start. ITMS, which was talked about a lot while we were in Chicago this week, coming the first week or so in September. Printing United, as we said, and then all of the other fall shows that are setting up to happen right now has everybody busy. So Don and I will be watching out for news as we see it come up. Our goal is to have our show once a month. I have a feeling it's it's possibly going to be a lot, Don, like the Don and Mike Show Extra was back during COVID, right? I mean, it was, you try to do a weekly show and then all of a sudden you did 2 a week. I think we're a little too busy right now to do that type of run. But what we could do is if something breaks, we will jump on it. You and I'll jump on, StreamYard here, and we'll record an update and get feedback from what's going on from anybody that is involved with heavy news that might come up between our August and our September show. September's recording, we're talking offline a minute ago. I'll be in Las Vegas back at the Don and Mike Show original studios, which is still intact. I found out still at the office there at ECN. So really looking forward to sit back in that studio and see what's going on in there and maybe record a little bit of video while we're there in Vegas for our September show. Of course, the Major Randy that's coming up in Chateau Elan towards the end of the month in September. You did mention off Mike a minute ago, and I will make mention of this, that the Atlanta-based Get Out of the Gutter tournament is coming up here in August on the 22nd of August at the regular Bolero Lanes on the north side of Atlanta. So that one's beginning to fill up pretty quickly. And so there's and I think it's possibly some other theater events that are going on before we get into, of course, the big Atlanta Randy here. And we talk a lot about that, Don, but the main thing is that's a very important event for our industry for many reasons. But the main one, as you always say, it's contributing to the lives of people who have setbacks within our industry. We're one of the only industries that does this type of work. And it's something to be proud of, I would think.
Yes, without a doubt. That list grows, and they'll be adding people up to the last minute probably. And for each one that we know of, there's a couple handful that we don't know of, and we wish we can help everybody. So glad we have events like this, and glad we have such big-hearted people and company owners in our industry.
So this was our first stab at the Don and Mike Show reunion podcast here at Exhibit City News. We appreciate you checking us out. And as we move forward, we will kind of get things a little more organized and figure it all out from the Don and Mike Show reunion podcast.